In this video, we are doing things a little bit different than you're used to, because I am doing my first duo test here on this channel. My name is Peter, and today we have the Mazda 2 in hybrid form and the Opel Corsa also in hybrid form. And I thought it would be fun to pit these two against each other, because at least on paper, they are very similar cars. On this side with the Mazda 2, the expert audience that you are, you've already seen that this looks a lot like a Toyota Yaris, and that is because it is a Toyota Yaris. The only thing fundamentally different is the Mazda logo. It's a collaboration project between Mazda and Toyota, and basically this is just a rebranded Yaris. Nothing wrong with that, but that makes it a bit boring to review because we've already done a review of the Yaris. So I thought it would be nice to pit this against the Opel Corsa that I also have in the test this week, especially because this is also the hybrid version. Now, it is never a fully fair comparison, of course, but I do think that these cars sit in the same space in the car market, so I thought it would be fun to pit them together and see what's what. Now, this is a tryout thing, so that's where you as the audience comes into play. If you like this kind of video, let us know. If you don't like, also let us know. Because as much fun as it is to make these kind of videos, in the end, we're making these videos for you. So if you like what you see, if you like these kind of tests, then I can do it more often. And if that's not the case, then obviously this was a one-off and never again. So let me know in the comments below if you don't want to see this kind of video anymore. And if you do want to see it, give this video a like, and then I will do so more often. Now, to make sure everything stays factual, I have my cheat sheet here, and I'll put a few things up on the screen as well so you can read along. We're going to start on the outside, obviously, with these two cars. Size-wise, they're very similar, although the Opel is slightly bigger. So width-wise, we have 1m74.5 for the Mazda on the right, and we have 1m76.5 for the Opel, so that's very much the same. The difference is in the length, where the Mazda is 3m94, the Opel is 4m6cm. So that's 12 centimeters extra length, and you can see it here a little bit on the front. Height-wise, the Mazda is actually a little bit higher with 1m50, where the Opel is 1m43.5. That does make the Opel a little bit heavier. The curb weight here is 1200 kilos and a little bit, where the Mazda is just under 1100 kilos, so about 120 kilo difference, which is, a big moped in the glove box, so, not to be underestimated, especially since these engines are not super powerful. It is a lot of extra weight that you're carrying, but you do get a bigger footprint in the Corsa. Styling-wise, obviously the Corsa has the familiar modern Opel design language. I quite like it with that visor in the front. I'm not too sure about this green color, even though it contrasts nicely with the wheels. But I think I would go for the Opel bright blue color. I think that pops a bit more, especially with the black accents here on the front. As far as the Mazda goes, it's a classic pocket rocket design. I quite like that too. I'm not sure about this silver. I think I would get this in full black, especially with these black wheels. Then we got to talk engines. Both these test cars in hybrid form, like I said. Here in the Mazda we have the familiar Toyota hybrid powertrain. So we have the full hybrid self-charging system with 85 kilowatts, which is about 115 horsepower, 120 newton meters of torque, which should get us to 0 to 100 in just under 10 seconds. If you look at the average fuel consumption, claimed average WLTP, we're looking at 3.8 liters per 100 kilometers. So it's a very familiar engine, it's a very nice engine. Toyota has been doing hybrids for decades, so they know exactly what's up there, and it is a very pleasant car to drive with. Then the Corsa. Here we have the 48-volt mild hybrid system. This comes in several flavors, but here we have the 74 kilowatts, which is about 100 horsepower version. That gives us just over 200 newton meters of torque and should get us to 100 in 10.7 seconds, so it's about a second slower than the Mazda. Claimed fuel economy is 4.4 per 100 kilometers. So this is a familiar engine also from the entire Stellantis group. Works fine, slightly different technology than the Toyota, but still very much pleasant to drive and good fuel economy. Obviously a little bit of driving in these two cars as well, and we're starting in the Mazda, in the build-up area around my house, because obviously, like I mentioned before, this is a car that you are most likely going to buy as a secondary car to drive in and around town. So it has to perform here, and performing it certainly does. This size vehicle means that anything in and around a city center or neighborhoods like this is just easy. It's just pleasant to maneuver, easy to place, and an all-round joyful experience to drive around. The steering is light, you have a great view out to see where the car is going. Placing it, doesn't matter if it's parallel parking, underground parking, narrow streets, makes life just easy. And that's the strength of this size car, is that all those things are so much less cumbersome than with larger vehicles, while not really giving up that much here on the inside in terms of space in the back and comfort here in the front. The hybrid powertrain, as far as that goes, ties right into that because it's an effortless powertrain, really. You really have to pay attention to the engine and the sounds to realize that it's switching modes. And it just does all the work for you, which just makes life, again, so much easier for the driver. And I think that's the strength of this car, and of course the strength of the Yaris as well. And it just makes life easy. It's such a plug-and-play solution. You get in, you go, and you barely have to change anything in terms of your driving style. And it just makes it a very strong and compelling package. Then we are driving the Opel Corsa here in 48-volt mild hybrid variety. We are currently on the highway, and out here it is exactly what you expect from a relatively small car like this. The power is just like in the Mazda, is nothing to write home about, but it's still more than adequate, I'd say, especially for Dutch traffic. At no point in the week that I've had this car now did I feel slow or unable to keep up with traffic or anything. But at the same time, it's also not a power level that makes you feel very excited to take an on-ramp or start overtaking. Everything is, relative as far as that goes, but it's fine for Dutch traffic for sure. But yeah, you have to plan a little bit in terms of overtaking, for example. You have to look a bit further ahead if you want to make some moves toward an exit. Because the power is just not that much, so your options are limited as far as that goes. That said, it is a relatively light car, so that does compensate for itself, but still, by no means this is going to be a very fast car in any situation. The weight is actually an interesting thing to note right away, and a nice bridge towards the handling behavior. This car weighs half, pretty much, of my X-Bang G6. That's crazy. If you think about it, this is half the car in terms of weight, and you notice that everywhere, every roundabout, every corner you take, even while parking. It's so tangible, that lack of weight. It's amazing, and it's really nice to sort of drive these cars every once in a while, where all the big heavy EVs are fun, but it's nice to drive these cars to be a bit more in touch with the feeling you get while driving, both in terms of the weight and the handling, but also size-wise. It is a small vehicle, and it's like the moment you get in, you have a good sense of the size of the car. You sit down and you immediately have a good feeling of where the car starts and ends, how much car is around you, and that makes it easy to place, easy to drive through city centers especially, and also easy to maneuver around in general. Parking structures, parking garages, it just makes it easier all around to place this car, which is nice. And then combined with the weight and the relatively low power, I think that is a very nice combination. Then we got to talk boot space. Obviously this is a typical class of cars that you drive before you start family life. Maybe with one baby it still fits, but once you start having bigger kids or multiple kids, obviously these cars get quite small quite quickly. And on the other hand, these are typical cars that you use to drive when you have the kids as a secondary vehicle, to drive them to tennis lessons, swimming practice, all those things. So adequate boot space is important. Now the Opel is a slightly larger car, so there's slightly more cargo space. 309 liters for the Opel, 286 liters for the Mazda, with the rear seats up. When you fold those down, the Mazda will get 935 and the Opel will get 1081 liters of space. So a good 100 liters more for the Opel when you start to really pack it up and load it full. In day-to-day use, 23 liters extra. Are you really going to notice that? Probably not. But it is an extra bag of groceries, for example. So that is nice to have that extra bit of space. Now I do admit that this shot is a bit boring because it's just two black holes next to me, but there is nothing in terms of features in either of these cars. They even both have similar load lips before you reach the boot floor. So there's nothing to see in either of them, but they are highly functional. Obviously we have to do a bit of highway driving as well, and we start in the middle of an overtake. This is not the natural habitat of this car, even though technically speaking it's all possible, of course. But with a small engine, you are not expecting any miracles. That said, the car also doesn't weigh so much, so despite the small engine, there is at no point in the week that I've had this car now that I felt slow or unable to perform maneuvers or anything here on the highway. And that's a good sign, because obviously the size of the car is very beneficial in the city, but that automatically means it is less good on the highway. And there are problems. Obviously, I have to raise my voice to talk to you because it gets loud in here. But at the same time, it is a small and light car, so we don't need a huge engine to have any kind of performance. When I did the review of the Toyota Yaris, Toyota actually told me that they're seeing a trend where people want the smaller car with the hybrid powertrain and all the benefits that it brings, but they still want that feeling of a comfortable and pleasant driving environment. So they do want all the toys. And this version, as it sits here, does have all the toys. So we have a head-up display, we have a digital driver's display, sat-nav, seat warming, all the buttons on the steering wheel. It is a very well-equipped car, and it makes the driving experience very pleasant as well. And I really can see the appeal of that, because why not have a car that you are probably going to use on a daily basis and have it equipped with all the right toys and tools to make the driving experience very pleasant. Because nothing's worse than buying a very cheap car as a secondary vehicle and then have to fiddle with your phone and a navigation that doesn't work and, you know, be uncomfortable in the winter and so on. This has none of that. This is a pleasant place to be, and all the toys are right at my fingertips. And I say fingertips on purpose because there is not a single touchy swipey surface in this car, except for the touchscreen, of course. There's real buttons everywhere, there's real stalks, there's a knob to turn for the air conditioning temperature, there's real buttons and a joystick for the mirror controls. So it is a very well equipped car, and that makes the journey nice every single time you get in. Now, despite the fact that this is not the car that you're going to pick to drive to ski holiday in, even though technically speaking it is possible, it is very manageable here on the highway, in between cities. You have to take the kids to the grandparents, for example. No issues whatsoever. And I think that's a nice combination of capabilities as well, where you have the agile and nimbleness in the city and still have the option to drive a little bit further if you want to. With the downsides of a smaller car, obviously, you never feel big in traffic. You're always a smaller traffic participant. And obviously there are physical limits to the power and the comfort and the space in this vehicle. But it's perfectly fine and perfectly reasonable when you take those things into consideration. Here in the back of the Mazda 2, there is a surprising amount of space for somebody 183 and 90 kilos. I can fit relatively comfortably behind myself, and thanks to the slightly more headroom, it is also fitting there. So no issues whatsoever. I can put my feet under the seat and sit here for a reasonable amount of time without any issues really. The interior of this car is black with black and even more black, but thanks to a panoramic roof, it is actually not too bad here in terms of light either. It is completely featureless apart from a window switch. So there's no seat pockets, armrest or anything else going on, but it's perfectly fine here. And of course for kids, there's no issues either. In the back of the Corsa, there is space, and I do technically fit, but that's all there is to be said. Luckily, the rear of the front seats is also soft, so no issues for my knees. But as you can see, with 1,83 meters and 90 kilos, there is basically no space left if I put this passenger seat in the same position as my driving position. So obviously you can put everything a bit more forward and then it gets a bit more comfortable. But despite the longer size of the car, that does not translate into more space in here. Just like the Mazda, in here it's also black with black and even more black. No panoramic roof option here, so it does get slightly more claustrophobic back here. Similar to the Mazda, there are no features back here, so no seat pockets, no armrests, no USBs, no nothing. So it is very bare bones and basic in here. I do have a window switch though and slightly bigger door bins than the Mazda, but that is about it. In here, there is not that much to complain about, except for some piano black here in the center console and around the screen. That is still something that needs to be removed, obviously. But all around, it is pretty basic in here. This is not one of those fully loaded press cars. It's a relatively bare bone spec. So that's actually also nice, because usually the brands give us journalists like fully loaded models with all the toys in it, but it's nice to have a more simple version here as well for a change. So that's good. It is very black in here though, just like in the Mazda. A bit too black maybe even for my taste. I understand that these cars are built to a budget, of course, and black plastic and black materials are cheaper, but it is very black in here, apart from the green strip through the dash and here on the door that matches the outside color. Sitting here though, it is everything you want from a small car. Like I said, by no means fast, but still very comfortable. Seats are okay. The wind noise is kept to a very acceptable level, even for the size of the car. And all around, it's more than fine here on the highway. Same thing in the city. It's very pleasant to drive my kids to sports, throw some friends in the back, throw some bags in the boot. Nothing really going wrong there. It's all fine, and I think that's the intended purpose of this car. In and around city driving, and then have the option to do a bit longer distance as well, even though in all honesty you're not going to drive this car to your summer or winter holiday destination. It is all possible, of course, absolutely, people in the comments, but there's better cars for that, and this is not your primary holiday vehicle, I think. Let's be honest. I think when you start looking at cars like this, you can go two ways. You can either go for the fully loaded, absolutely all the toys versions with all the creature comforts, with seat heating, with head-up displays and so on, or you go for a fully most bare-bone version that you can find, where you say, listen, I'm only going to use this to drive my kids to swimming and to hockey practice, and I'm not going to drive any further than 50 kilometers. This is all I need. I don't need any toys, I don't need any extras, I just want a cheap vehicle. Personally, I would probably pick the Mazda because it's a bit more of that pocket rocket feeling. This car feels slightly more grown up, if you want to call it that way. It's a bigger vehicle too, but it feels a bit more like towards a bigger car, where the Mazda still feels like a proper small car. There's nothing really to fundamentally complain in this Corsa. I think all the basics are covered. Real buttons, flippers that you'll never use, but okay. Stalks, everything is fine, even though at no point this will wow you, but that is also not strictly necessary in a car like this. It drives nice, feels good around you, and everything works the way you think it does. So, that's good. And simple things like air conditioning units with real buttons and knobs to twist, I think that is excellent, and that is well done by Opel. So let me know in the comments below, which one would you pick, the Mazda or this one? And most importantly, also let us know if you like to see comparison videos like this more often, because then we will. And if you don't, then we won't. Because in the end, we want to make cool videos for you guys, and if this is something that you like, we can certainly do that more often. For now, thank you very much for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you do, and a sub to the channel is of course always appreciated. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!